Welcome. As you join in, I want to let you know that we have closed caption available as well as ASL interpretation. If you want to hear the ASL interpreter's voices, click the show caption button, and thank you for joining us. Since we have a good amount of people, we're going to go ahead and start. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Forche. I use pronouns she, her. I have curly brown hair with glasses. I have a shirt with a green logo on it, a mandala. My background is my room with curtains in the background. Currently, I am involved in Core That and a Mary Vista as well. I'll be a panelist for this webinar tonight. So now we're going to open up and we're going to discuss a few housekeeping rules. We're going to just tell you what the panel looks like. I'm going to take 2 or 3 minutes to explain housekeeping. And then once we're done, I'm going to pass it over to Jolene, who will be our moderator for this evening. The next 40 minutes or so, we're going to have a discussion. We're going to throw ideas. We're going to have questions. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and add them to the chat, and we'll hold your questions until the end, and we'll have a Q&A at the very end, the last 15 minutes of the webinar, around 7:45, and then we'll open up for audience questions. If you want to pop up and sign your question, that's fine. The interpreter will voice for you, or if you want to talk, the interpreter will sign for you. Just be mindful and hold your questions until the end, the last 15 minutes of the webinar this evening. Trying to make sure I covered all my bases. I also want to take the opportunity to thank our interpreters from Trailblazing, which is also the sponsor for this event, the Maryland School MOT. They're supporting us and sponsoring us this panel webinar tonight. So I want to give a thank you. And also, Jolene is going to be our moderator for this evening. Send it over to you, Jolene. Hello, everyone. My name is Jolene Duran. This is my sign name. I will be the moderator for this evening's panel. My background is decorated. I'm at my aunt's house in the room. There's a lot of arts on the wall, hangers with cups and bags, different ornaments on the back on the wall. My shirt is pink. I'm wearing black glasses. My hair is shaved. And my pronouns are she and her. I'm from Florida. And we have several panelists here. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves, their name, their background, where they're from, and how long have you been working with AmeriCorps. And then once we get through that, we're going to go ahead and start with our panel.
Okay, I guess I can start.
Well, hello again. My name is Sam Forche. I am from DC. I'm from Maryland, but I live in DC and I commute. Our office is located in Baltimore. So, Maryland / the DMV area. I work for Core That and also AmeriCorps as a Vista, a volunteer Vista there. I've been involved in this work for about 1 year now. This has been my second term serving. Next, who's next?
I guess hello, my name is Taylor. I am from Minnesota. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My background, I have a plant to my left. I also have a lamp behind that. I'm sitting on a couch. I'm wearing a white shirt with a logo on it. And this is from the National Nature Service. And then you can see I have a brown door to my left, and I think that's it.
Well, good evening. Hello, everyone. My name is Dahlia Davis, and this is my name sign. Currently, my background is a white wall. I am wearing a white long sleeve shirt that says Conservation Corps on it with a logo on the left-hand side. My pronouns are she, her. Well, I got to learn everyone's sign names: Sam, Dahlia, Taylor. Dahlia, can you sign that sign name again for me? Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm ready to dive in with the questions. Are you guys ready? So, first question. What has been your experience working in the community with AmeriCorps? What has your experience been thus far? You can give me some examples. Um, have you joined AmeriCorps? What have you done? What kind of service work have you done? Do you mind explaining? Anyone can answer.
I can go. This is Sam speaking. So I've worked for Core That, as I just mentioned. So I worked in marketing/communication. So that was my second year. Now, within my first year, my main focus heavily was on the curriculum building for their conservation. That was a pretty new program when it first started, and I was actually the first one to join that group. And I think within 2 or 3 months after joining AmeriCorps, so it went very quickly from there. And I'm almost done with my second year, which has gone by in the blink of an eye. But most of my program was on building the curriculum first. And at that time, Core That was, I think it was established in 2016. So it was 2021 at that time. So we were rapidly growing, but there was still a lot of foundational work to where we are now. There was some operational things that had changed, a lot of new information that we had from other, to actually be able to form Core That. So we had borrowed some programs initially, and we realized that we wanted to create our own programs rather than modifying or changing others to fit us. We decided to create our own from scratch. And that is what we applied to the second cohort in 2022. And after the feedback that we received, we got a lot of changes from there, and we're now moving forward from the 2023 one. So it's been a lot of work, but it's been great.
This is Jolene. Wow, that's amazing. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add? What do you feel like has been the most impactful for you in your experience and in your service? Does anyone want to answer?
So for me, my program was really good. So it was a good mix of hearing and deaf people. So I really enjoyed being able to work with kind of a diverse cohort of deaf and hearing people and different language users. So I really felt like that was really impactful. It was nice to have that kind of place in that organization, and I really enjoyed it.
Great, thank you. Taylor, would you like to add anything?
Related to community service. So mine was with Core That and SAMCOR. So I volunteered at the NPS, the National Park Service. So I went there first in a landscape role. So I did different landscaping, working with trees as an arborist, and cutting back trees and things like that. And then I started my actual tour, which was in different missions, working with different missions. And I think that was it. There was one more. So those were my kind of different service experiences.
Thank you, Taylor, for your input. Wow, so we have a variety and a diverse group here with us this evening. And so, whether you were with AmeriCorps or Core That, what was the most impactful for you? What was that one moment that really influenced you to continue doing this work, or has had an impact on your future? Or how do you feel like you were able to apply what you learned currently in your life where you are? I'm gonna give you some time to think. The questions are coming fast. I'm gonna give you some time. Sam, go ahead.
This is Sam. I think it's a little bit challenging for me because I graduated my undergraduate in 2021, and I know obviously it was the pandemic year. So even though it wasn't 2020, we were still in the middle of COVID, so we hadn't transitioned back into in-person learning at that point. So there were some students that were on campus, but not all of us had returned to in-person. So I think May 2021, at that time, I had sent out an application for core that, and there was it was the conservation corps that I had worked with for 4 weeks. And then when I got back home, I applied and found out about AmeriCorps. There was a position that was available, and I was interested in the position and decided to send out my application. And I found out a few months later, it took a little bit of time to actually hear back, but they have a host site for AmeriCorps that is actually at the state level. So they had to go up to the state level to actually be able to hear back. So it took a little bit longer for the interview to go through for AmeriCorps to actually get back down to core that. So it took a lot longer than I expected. It was about a 2 or 3 month process for the entire thing. But anyway, the point is, right after I'd finished college, I applied for core that, and I was working. It was my only full-time job with AmeriCorps and Vista, and so I was looking maybe at going to graduate school or moving into a full-time position, but I wasn't sure exactly what it would look like, and I wasn't sure where I could make an impact at that point. And I had maybe seen myself working with AmeriCorps, but I wasn't sure the impact of it. And so I was still on the fence a little bit about what direction I wanted to go. So yeah, it was a bit of a process.
Wow, you had such an enriching experience and was able to get so much from your experience. That's totally amazing. Any other person want to share? Dahlia Taylor, I'm leaving it up to you.
Go ahead, Dahlia.
Dahlia?
So my position was in undergrad. So when I was in undergrad, I was traveling around. I was in Korea, Ireland, as well as the United States. I went to California. I was in Florida for a little bit. And I had worked with the National Park Service and those types of places. And I really found it was a great experience. One part was in Minnesota. They had a really good deaf community there. And I know the National Park Service, and it was a little bit different than my previous experience as far as how they work together with other agencies, but it was good.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much, Dahlia. And lastly, but not least, Taylor.
What was the question one more time?
What has been the most impactful experience for you in your life with work, college, right now where you are? What do you feel has been the most impactful for you before and after joining the Corps?
So I think obviously working with the National Park Service was really impactful. It was a great experience. They had a concentration in biology, so that was nice. And so it was part-time. So it was great that I was able to apply for that. And then now I'm in my senior year, my final year of school. My goal for after graduation is just to become a dentist. So I'd like to go to orthodontist school and continue to work in maybe the national park in some capacity. But yeah.
Thank you. So another question that I have for you is now you all shared with us your experience and your successes. Do you mind explaining some challenges you had when you're working and doing your service in the community, whether with AmeriCorps or Core that? What was some strengths, successes and challenges that you faced during your time?
Should I go first or?
Anyone can go first.
I think for me, it was really good to have that teamwork. I remember they had ASL classes, and so it was really good that we could share feedback and learn how to improve our signings. And so that was a really good way of kind of working together. And so ASL classes was really helpful because it was nice to see everyone see that, kind of dedication. And it was a diverse group. It was some immigrants and some second language users, some hearing people that didn't know sign. And so it was nice once that group really got together. The biggest challenge ended up just being the heat. The hardest part about it was just trying to get through the heat. But I think the important thing was we stayed hydrated. We had a lot of water, and yeah, we had really good time management. I think that's really important. We got up very early to start our day. We took a shuttle over to our work site and stuff like that. So it was a really important thing to manage those challenges, but it was really well done.
Sam, Dahlia, and you want to add anything?
So my experience, I think I had two different experiences. First, because I did a month-long training, and then I went on break before I started the actual service work in the Dominican Republic. So I worked with an interpreter there as my crew leader. And so we had to kind of manage our own time on our island. We weren't very familiar with it. And so we had an alarm, for when to get up. So we used some kind of unique technology that we had, we didn't have like a traditional vibrating alarm clock, so we had to use our watches, and so sometimes we woke up a little bit late. And so my crew leader that I worked with, usually in the morning, would shake my tent to wake me up, and I thought that was pretty creative. Usually in the morning it's pretty dark and the weather's not the best, so there will be rain or things like that. So we would have to get up for breakfast or to actually get to the work site for that day, but we really depended on the two of us and the vibrating, watch that we had to actually get us up on time. And our bunk beds, so we would just kind of shake the bunk beds. But it was a really fun experience, and it was really creative to see how we work through those challenges in a new environment.
Thank you, Dahlia. I really appreciate it. Any last thoughts before we move on?
Yeah. This is Sam. I was trying to think of some of the challenges. I was getting excited, to find memories. But yeah, I think 2 years worth of experience, there's definitely going to be some challenges. There was a lot of successes, but there were things that were challenging as well. And I think one of those challenges was initially when I first started my term at AmeriCorps. So I'm trying to remember, it was November 21st was when I started. Now, I was still in Washington State at that time. I was living with my parents. And so I had sent out the application from Washington State. And when I found out that I actually got the position, I had to relocate to Maryland, I knew it was coming, but it was still a shock. And that was at the end of 2021. So we were still kind of in the pandemic, and we were still in a place where, a lot of businesses had restricted hours and closing were pretty early and stuff like that. And we didn't have an official office established yet. So I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing about relocating and when I needed to relocate, because, I was going from Washington to another Washington, but it was the district. So it was a lot of things that I had to figure out. And so both my parents were educators, and so they were on winter vacation. So they were able to help me fly to DC. I had to buy my own car when I got there, and I had to find a place to live, and that was its own challenge. And so we just kept checking things off the list. And there was a lot of wins, and that was really the beginning of my term. And sometimes what happens is it's not necessarily about a work challenge, but there were some challenges within my life that I had to kind of bring into my work in some ways, or find ways for them to work together. So, navigating by driving, I think, was a challenge because it was a new area, and commuting was new for me. And some of those successes that I felt that, again, I feel like, anytime you start being involved in a conservation group, it always hits home because of the work that we do is so impactful. But it was really good to see some progression. And it was a really great experience coming from the summer and seeing it change over time. And of course, I couldn't be really too involved at that point. I had to set my own boundaries. I had to get my own, work done as I was working in our marketing section originally. So I wish I was able to help out more than I was. But when I was working on the curriculum, the first menu that we had created for Core that, there were little things that I was very proud of that I got to be, involved in directly, that I consider wins. So.
Great. That's amazing. I have another question. It's a little bit more complicated, and it'll require you to give a more in-depth answer. So as a deaf person, all of you are deaf, what is your perspective or your view about the work that and the services you've provided for AmeriCorps or Core that, have you thought about the unique position you have been in being a deaf individual in this field of work?
Are you talking about deaf gain, Jolene?
Like, I mean, like your work, how has it benefited you? Um, as a whole, as a crew, as an individual, having to work with other people. What do you think that non-deaf people working with a core of deaf people, what do you think their perspective was, and how do you think it benefited them? Let me know if you need me to clarify the question a little bit more. I'll be happy to help you.
This is Sam. The first thing I thought of is just as a deaf person who works with, deaf people in a nonprofit organization, it's really great because we have access to direct communication, which is not very common. Now, with, I guess, with AmeriCorps Vista, I think our office is required to host volunteer events, I think on an annual basis or every fall and spring, just depending on what it is. But the recent one that we had, we worked with Tool Bank, and that's a place where we actually get tools on loan for a very discounted price. I mean, a very discounted price. So it's great that we partner with that organizations. Usually organizations have a partnership with the nonprofit organization so that way they can get a little bit discounts on tools. But anyway, so we had hosted a community event, and it was the first time that we partnered with a hearing organization. So there was an ASL class that we had, which would be nice, for the organization to join and learn. But they still took some of our classes, but it was still brought in from a hearing perspective, and so there was a lot of questions on how we bring people to them and how they bring people to us, specifically like using tools like wheelbarrows or fixing things or applying gloves or making sure that we're staying clean. And it was a little bit of not the cleanest area, so making sure that it was definitely a challenge because we were partnering with a hearing organization. Some of the nuances of working with deaf people was lost on them. So it took some more patience than it should gain.
Any other thoughts on that?
Are you speaking directly about the hearing community? And Jolene saying, no, more your view. So like if you have working with someone with a different perspective. So like maybe your job in AmeriCorps or Core that, what have you felt has helped your perspective on that? Do you feel that you have gained a different perspective or seen how other people do things and gained a better understanding of it? Or I guess that was my question.
Oh, so the National Park Service, I feel like they were very encouraging of communication. We used a whiteboard. We would either use the phone sometimes, and sometimes, we would gesture as well. And we would become comfortable with each other. So that there were several ways in which we communicated, whether it be through gesture, writing, or texting.
Great. Thank you, Taylor. Next, Dahlia, did you want to share any thoughts or perspectives that you gained?
I know for myself, I grew up using hearing aids and oral. And so when I went into AmeriCorps, it was the first time that I used an interpreter and was able to socialize with other people at the same time. And I didn't have my hearing aids on, and I was fully immersed in signing and socializing in sign language. So that was a new environment for me. Like I said, I feel like I had two separate experiences. I had one with training and then one with the National Park Services. And my training uh was based in Minnesota. And so, that was a good mixture of hearing and deaf, had an interpreter there. So it kind of like forced the communication, and we had to develop strategies and ways that we would communicate effectively with each other. Compared to the National Park Service, most of them at NPS they were friendly with us. They really, I think that they really benefited from working with us, and things have changed. Um, one thing about MPS, they made a wood placard for us, and they used resources to fingerspell and learn how to get better at signing. So it was really important to see the effort that they were making to communicate with us. It was a little awkward at first. They didn't know what to do, how to communicate with a deaf person, but as time went on, things got better.
Great. Thank you, Dahlia, for that answer. Okay, so moving on to the next question. So in your either service work or in your volunteer work, have you felt that you have access to the group around you? Do you feel that you were involved in these groups, usually hearing people? So if you could talk a little bit about the access and involvement that you felt when working in your capacity, and that could be as an individual or as a group. Did you feel that you had access and were included with those hearing counterparts that you had? Why or not? And just to kind of expand upon this, so first we're asking about access, and then second about inclusion. So did you feel that there was good diversity? Did you feel that there was a lot of transparent communication between you and your other team leaders and team members? So those are kind of two parts of the question. And why do you feel that way? So do you feel that it was very accessible or not so? Or did you feel that you were very included or not very included in your work or in your volunteer capacity in AmeriCorps or that?
This is Sam.
Go ahead, Sam.
I remember I was previously in something that was not related to core that. I just want to make that clear. I had an experience, and I was working for a volunteer event. It was an MLK event that was being hosted. It was a very specific day, and we went to a beautiful park in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is, not too far from DC. And my boss, like the higher up boss, was like, come on. I was the only one involved with different organizations in Maryland. And so my boss was coming to get me because, it was so much trash in this park. It was awful. Littering was everywhere. And it was just, we had to forge a path, and we went and we picked up trash. Um, the river, there was some trash there. We went, I can see like people were drinking and then would go there to the park and dispose of their trash. Um, and I was able to get an interpreter with me. It was a little bit awkward when we arrived, kind of like just twiddling our thumb. We didn't know where to go, what to do. And so it was a little bit awkward for me. And we had to sign up, and there was a lot of talking. And oftentimes, I didn't know, where the interpreter was. I felt out of the loop. Um, or I would go and ask them, like, hey, where's the interpreter? But there were so many people around and so much noise. It was like everyone was working in silos. I didn't know what group I was supposed to be in. I didn't have an interpreter. I felt a little overwhelmed. The interpreter did then end up coming, but still, everyone was already divided and working amongst themselves. And it was very stressful. And I just felt like a sitting duck. I didn't know what to do or where to go. There was no sign that instructed me on where I would be able to find the specific things. I never got the information from the beginning, from the volunteer list, the instructions about what to do, what they expect of us. my interpreter's name, all of these little nuanced things that would have made my experience so much better, and and being able to prepare better, they weren't provided for me. Um, it's not like a hearing person just showing up. That's not just it. I have more things that I need in order to be successful. I need an interpreter. I need to know how me and the interpreter are going to work together, where the interpreter is going to be. So that was one experience that I found to be really challenging.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Sam. Taylor, Dahlia?
This is Taylor. Do you want to know my perspective as a person who's involved in AmeriCorps? Or, yeah, do you mind explaining again what you were asking for?
Sure. So the question was, whether you were, there in AmeriCorps or Corps, well, not necessarily Corps that, but in your experience, either maybe 3 months before in community service or in your employment, did you feel that you had access? And did you feel that you were included? So some people, based on their experience, may have felt there was really good access or not very much, and same with inclusion. So, but 3 months before your work with Core, that what did it feel like? Did it feel like you had sufficient access? And did you feel that you were included? Did you feel that you were able to work with hearing and deaf people? What were your experiences like, and why?
This is Taylor speaking. In my experience in my 3 months, it was great. They provided access. Uh we had access to technology if we needed it, such as phones. Um, they would really try to sign and work with us. And if not, they provided an interpreter. If there was a need or if we had a meeting, they would make sure to schedule an interpreter in advance. For workshops, they would also provide interpreters as well. So in my experience, it was pretty good.
This is Sam. I have a question for you, Taylor. Is that okay? I just wanted to clarify Jolene's question. So when you're working like community service, whether that was AmeriCorps or just volunteer work that you did as community service, did you feel that you had, did you feel that it was inclusive, and did you feel that you have access? So you were just talking about that it felt like you had access to technology, but did you feel that was very inclusive for the national, you worked for the National Park Service, right? Did you feel included as
Yeah.
an individual? Did you feel that they were warm and welcoming? How did they make you feel included? Can you give some examples of how MPS really made you feel included or part of the team as a deaf individual, as a deaf person? You didn't feel like excluded by being deaf?
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that for me. One time I was experiencing challenges and was struggling with one person, and I had to, confront it. And so at first we were we were gesturing, and then we were moving around, we were pointing, and I felt like I had equal communication. Even though there was a struggle, we were still able to find a way that worked the best for us.
Great. Thank you, Taylor. And thank you, Sam, for clarifying that question. Talia, or Dahlia, excuse me.
So I know access means and inclusion mean two different things. Access in a workplace, we're involved in that, and we have different hierarchy levels, but inclusion is more of a social thing. It's more of a human aspect to it. And with access, with my experience, I noticed hearing people didn't really know how to work with an interpreter. They didn't know how the interpreting process worked. Because in my program, I noticed that the hearing people would just focus on the interpreter. But when it came to like the social aspect, with, with having to interact socially with the deaf people when the deaf and hearing people were mixed together, they heavily depended on the interpreter. They didn't, I felt like, you know, sometimes the story would get misconfused, or like, I would miss those little small talks in the morning during breakfast. But overall, it was possible that it had an impact and we communicated.
Great, thank you. We're gonna move on to the next question. So I'm curious your thoughts, either formally or presently, on with AmeriCorps on what they can improve upon, both in your position, so your own experience, and also what should be improved overall for future participants in both your volunteer work, your community service, or your work with AmeriCorps. So do you guys have any thoughts?
Stan?
So I don't have any current objections with my role, but I know that hosts like Core that it's a very big company, and communication is really great for me. I just love that I work with deaf people and we can communicate directly. One of the challenges I think is it was definitely challenging to apply. Not incredibly challenging, but to find out that the position was open. It's a .gov website, and when I actually was able to apply, the interview was set for March, was for the first, or we had to do an interview first. And so when I finally did that, it just kind of delayed the process, and I was under a lot of pressure, obviously, because I was looking for employment. But I think part of me wasn't crazy about AmeriCorps' job application process. It felt like it was a very lengthy process. I'm happy I waited because it was worth it in the end. I did send out other applications while I was waiting for that job. So it was really good that I waited. But yeah, I think that would be my one thing.
All right, anyone else? This is Taylor.
Yep.
Um, I felt like we often had tasks to do. So I wish we had, we worked at a very fast pace. So I wish we had more time to really like settle into our task and take our time. But communication was fine. It was just, I wish there wasn't such a hurriedness and a hurried pace to get things done. But other than that, everything was good for me. Thank you. Dahlia, this is Dahlia. I don't want to complain. Um, CMI program, they had a meeting about culture, competency, about hearing and deaf culture. But for the deaf person, for specifically themselves who are we didn't receive the training. And they kept saying like it was in the future they would host it. Um, they focus on deaf youth and experiences and how we can encourage their experiences to be better, and we can help them have a better understanding of how to utilize interpreters and how to work things out with communication. With our core leader, their role specifically at AmeriCorps, their core leaders, was an interpreter themselves, but he can't be, it's a conflict of interest, to be a core leader as well as an interpreter. But they said they didn't provide us any formal training. So hopefully in the future, we can get more deaf-centered, deaf-focused training to all the members.
Great. Thank you, Dahlia. Okay, we are running out of time. We have time for just one or two more questions, and then we will open it up for other questions. I know we're excited about that. I know also Taylor has to leave us, but so this next question, what would be your tip or words of wisdom for future cohorts? So for any members in our audience who are interested in maybe working with AmeriCorps or Corps that, maybe in just different volunteer capacities or community service, what single tip would you have for them? And then my apologies. ASL is very dangerous, as we know. Let me repeat what I was saying. So for deaf kids who are maybe interested in being involved with this type of work, AmeriCorps, Corps that, or other community service or service positions. So do you have any words of wisdoms or tips that you would like to embed with our audience?
This is Taylor. One thing I would love to leave with the audience is really don't wait. Take the opportunity. If it presents itself, go ahead and do it now. Don't be scared. Don't sit on it. Really take your time to build relationships, increase your skills, communicate effectively, work on your resume building, your soft skills. If the opportunity presents itself, go for it and go for it full force.
Awesome. Those are great tips. Taylor or Dahlia, any final thoughts or tips?
This is Sam. I have three things. One, I want to emphasize what Taylor said about the different services about 3 months. So for me, I had a full year and I did different kinds of programs within that full year. One program I may take 9 months to complete, one program may take 3 months. But so far, I've been going for a year now. But I decided to look for other job opportunities to expand my skill set. Once the year is cool, finished, we have a Stellar Education Award. It really focuses on academics. You can get a stipend for school or buy money for a laptop, have money for a laptop. Whatever you use to do with that stipend, it's really up to you, but it's really for academics. And I'm really grateful that the federal government awards us this kind of money. You have to get it like notary. It's a process where you have to go through a notary. But if you don't want that award, you can get like a stipend for around 1,300, around 3,000. And then if you get a federal job, you go through the screening process, you can get an advance edge over everyone else who's applied. So really just planting those seeds and watching them grow and taking the opportunities when they come to you. It's really important. Thanks.
This is Dahlia. For me, if I think I would suggest everyone to do it. So if you're on the fence and considering it, I would say do it. Going through the program, I learned a lot. I know that we all are necessary. So I learned how to advocate for myself. That was something very new. And even if it wasn't always comfortable to do. Also, my program, I think, it had a lot of social opportunities and things like that. And that's really good for me. I think it needs more trainings and things like that. And also feedback for their staff.
Good. Thank you. Great. Thank you for all your feedback you provided us. Now we're getting close to the end, so we're going to open it up to the audience to see if you have any questions that you would like answer from our panelists tonight. So go ahead and ask your questions and we'll open it up now. If you have anything you're just curious about, please, let us know. We have a few minutes left.
And this is Sam. I just wanted to mention you can type it in the chat, or if you would prefer to sign in ASL, you are welcome to start your video and we will answer it that way. We also have 2 hearing interpreters available. If you would prefer to use English for your question, our interpreters will come on screen and interpret them. As Jolene mentioned, we are here to answer any questions you have. You're welcome to ask them in any capacity, but please don't be shy. Now is the time.
We won't call on you. But even if you just have any feelings or comments, concerns, anything, you can bring it here. Here's a time to ask your questions or anything you're thinking about. Raise your hand. There's a raise hand button, and or you, like I said, you can come off come on camera. Um, whatever's most comfortable for you to express the question that you want to have answered. Go ahead and ask.
So this is Sam. There is one question actually already in the Google Doc. Let me see. Are you able to see it?
No, I don't see anything.
So on the second page, if you scroll down to the bottom, I'm happy to ask the question. So the question says, would you do American programs again, AmeriCorps programs again? If so, would you look for programs with other deaf members? Oh, sorry. I think I jumped ahead of my question. Oh, now I get the question. Okay, I'm sorry. So would you do AmeriCorps programs again? And if so, would you look for programs with other deaf members? Or would you apply to hearing organizations as well? So this one, I would love to do another AmeriCorps program again, either deaf or hearing programs. Maybe go on an adventure of self-advocacy. I know by now my work with Core that I feel very strong and empowered. I feel like a great advocate, and I feel very mighty to be able to do that work. And I feel like I have a lot of resources that I can tap into from the last 2 years, also 2 years worth of life experiences, as well as some confidence in myself. And so I think I'm more prepared to be involved in a hearing program. So yeah, I wouldn't mind traveling and going into another program somewhere else.
Any other questions? I have one question. We have now in the chat. Wait, I'm just waiting. Perfect. This is Jolene. I have a question. We have another question. What if you feel like is your favorite part when you look back on your experience, something that you will never forget about your service work, your volunteer work? What is one thing that is going to stick with you forever and it made it all so worth it?
So I have to mention Jerry. So some of you guys know Jerry, but Jerry was the one who wanted to learn sign language. And he was the one who came up to me actually and tried to sign instead of just writing. So, he would learn everyone's sign names like mine. And I think that was a really beautiful memory. And then I just have to say, I absolutely detest the heat. So I couldn't do another a deployment in the heat.
All right. Sam, Dahlia, anything you want to ask? Is there any one thing that you can think about when you look back on your time?
I'm thinking, hmm. I know that specifically that area that I worked in was famous for moose. So we had to work around the moose quite a bit. So just in their kind of natural habitat, that was their domain. Instead of asking how big the moose were. So the trails, usually there was a couple big moose that were in the middle of it. So yeah, the moose. Usually they would try to go near the water or the trail. So we stumbled across a lot of moose.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Sam, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I was going to say, I wish I could have seen a moose, but that sounds exciting. I think one of my favorite memories would have to be, I mean, it's really hard. There's so many to choose from. I don't know how I would pick, but I would have to say that the Tool Bank volunteer event that day that I had mentioned in April was really, really enjoyable. Looking back, it was a great opportunity just because I was the one who taught the ASL class to them. So it was really cool to see them engage and learn some signs. And it was cool that there was actually another deaf person from the community that could teach them signs, and it made me really feel inspired to work with that type of group. And it made me feel like my job mattered and the work that I do matters. So I think that was one of my favorite memories.
Oh, wow. So we have some more questions in the chat. I just want to clarify. If it doesn't make sense or anything, oh, oh,
This is specifically for AmeriCorps. So to answer this is Sam. So I can explain. So what AmeriCorps is, when you think about the Peace Corps, a lot of people are familiar with the Peace Corps, and I think everyone knows what the Peace Corps is. So the Peace Corps is an international organization that will go to foreign countries and offer aid. They ask like people teach or provide some type of service. Now, AmeriCorps is obviously American, so we focus domestically. There's lots of challenges that we face in America. So if you look on their website, there's two goals: to eliminate poverty in America, and now not just in impoverished countries, but poverty like educational poverty, limited access to employment or resources. There's lots of ways to define poverty, but just beyond having no money. So there's Americans all over the United States that face poverty, and so there's many programs that try to address that. And actually, I just remembered something. I was looking at their website. So they celebrated their 30 years. I think it was 2 days ago or 3 days ago. So they celebrated their 30-year of service. So a lot of Americans have been involved in these programs now for 30 years. So that's kind of an
great,
explanation.
Sam. Thanks for providing that explanation. We have to wrap up soon, so we have 2 questions left. We won't be able to expand on both of them. But what skills did you learn with AmeriCorps and Core That, and any other service corps that you were involved in? The second question is, if there are any older people, if there are any older people in the Corps, or is it mostly younger or young folks? Is the priority going to youth, or is it for everyone to join? If you don't understand, let me know and I can clarify.
This is Sam. I can answer the second one. So yes, older people are absolutely welcomed and encouraged to work with AmeriCorps. And I met one who was in their 40s, and really any age is able to join and participate in. I know for some of our programs, like Dahlia's program, the CCM, that one usually is up to age 25. I can't remember exactly, but they do have an age cap. But for most of the programs in AmeriCorps, they're open to all ages and welcome all programs. And they also have a senior citizen program as well. So that's something to bear in mind. There's another one I can let Taylor or Dahlia answer, but I just wanted to mention that. I don't want to take over.
No, no problem. Go ahead. If you had something to say, I want you to explain it. Thank you. I appreciate that. What was some skills that you learned from AmeriCorps or Core That, um, or other volunteer corps that you have worked with? Either one. Partnership, collaboration. What were some of your key takeaway skills that you took from your experience?
So are you talking for AmeriCorps? I think that program really helped me a lot. It helped me build a lot of different skills like communication, being more mindful. Teamwork was definitely a big one. Really teamwork out in the real world, solve problems, and how to be very strategic and strategize, to not give up and persevere and resolve issues when they come up. So I think that really helped improve a lot of those skills. Also, critical thinking. I became much more thoughtful and thought more critically.
Thalia?
I think for me, it's impossible for me to explain my experience. I think the importance of it was great. The interview skills was some, also the friendships that I made. this last summer. It was really good. It was a wonderful experience. So
Great, thank you. Again, we have one more question. Like I said, we're getting close to the end. What do you plan to do with the award or the scholarship that you receive? What are your plans for your education, for academics? What do you plan to use the money for?
I can answer that. If my plan would be set up, of course, like looking for disasters or emergency, like making sure that there's books or resources. So kind of maybe for like emergency funds, and then also for graduate school. I would definitely save
Nice.
my future and apply for grad school. I think I had to take out a lot of loans, so that would help reduce it. I can imagine I would use it for a graduate program as well. I know that RIT has several certificate programs that you can do, and I think that's great. They have one for deaf interpreting and other various certificate programs. So I think that would be really cool. So I would probably do something like that.
Great. Thank you so much for all your insights. I really appreciate it. We are done this evening. Hold on one second for me. I just want to give a big thank you to everyone, to the tech support at Corvette. Thank you for ensuring that everything runs smoothly. To the interpreters who have joined us, what are their names? Cheyenne and Billy.
Every
Thank
other interpreter, that's okay.
um thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your help this evening. I'm missing the interpreter's name. Billy, everyone's spelling Billy. Sorry.
And Cheyenne.
Cheyenne.
And then Haney.
I'm sorry, it's all right. Anyway, I just want to give a big thank you to the interpreters and everyone who came out this evening to support us, and the tech support crew. I really appreciate all of your help. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for being active and sharing your perspective and views with us and with this evening. And thank you for allowing me to be the moderator. I really appreciate that.
And if I could just
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, so keep an eye out on our website, because we have another, or not a panel, but another workshop coming up that is about the U.S. Forest Service. So we have a workshop on that coming up soon. So look at our website for upcoming events. And thank you everyone for coming. Thank you everyone. Good night.
Good night.